structure so that you have an idea what's going on. Because we have here a new series of suttas which go back long time to Malacca, and then I came to Singapore, and then we started this new series called the Sutta Discovery. Okay, is there the front cover of the sutta?
You need the front cover.
Yeah, front cover, yes. The title page of the sutta. If you have the sutta printout or in your computer, you can see the front cover, you can see the heading Gārava Sutta, and then on the top right hand corner, you can see some words there, the Discourse on Respect, right? And then S6.2, you can see those words. Okay, so this is the first thing you must look for when you look at this sutta. Of course, the big print, I think it is 20 points. That's the Pali name. Now, the Pali name is very important, right? So we have this Pali page, the title page. Just bring it down a bit. Scroll down so you can see. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, very good. Right, so the first line in 20 points calibri is the title. And then, now in this case, I just leave it very simple, Gārava, because it's unique. There's only, as far as I know, only one sutta by this name. Then there is the English translation, the Discourse on Respect. Gārava is respect, okay? S6.2. Now, you either remember the Pali name, Gārava Sutta, or remember the number 6.2, okay? 6.2 is a unique number. S is Sangyutta Nikaya. It means what's called kindred sayings. These are similar teachings put together. This is the third Nikaya. 6.2 means chapter 6, sutta number 2. All right. Then there is an extra line here. In other texts, you don't have this. This is special. It says nearly identical to Uruvelā Sutta 1 and A 4.21/ page number 2, volume 2, page 20. F means the following page, page 21. Comma SD 55.3. Okay. All right, so here is extra information. That means this Uruvelā Sutta 1 is very close to this. Not 100%, but you can say 90%. All right. The number of this Uruvelā Sutta is A4.21. So either you remember Uruvelā Sutta 1, there are two suttas. So this is the first one. So don't just say Uruvelā Sutta, okay? It's just like you go to a house, you say, I want to see Mr. Tan, and there are 5 Mr. Tans there. So Uruvelā Sutta 1, all right? Or you can remember 4.21, A 4.21. A is Anguttara Nikaya. Anguttara means one up, or sometimes freely translated as numerical teachings. This is the fourth Nikaya, mostly for lay people. They're kind of listed by numbers. And many of these teachings are very short. It's assumed that we already know the teachings of the previous 3 Nikayas. Now this Nikaya is special, go by numbers. So 4 refers to the book of 4. So there are 4 items. There are 4 teachings. Okay, that's the difference. In this Gārava Sutta, there are 5 teachings. Okay, but we did not concern ourselves with that at this point. Then /2.20. 2 is volume 2 of the Pali text done by the Pali Text Society in the UK about 100 years ago. About 100 years ago. Okay, volume 2, page 20, and the following page. Then you come something very unique to us in Malaysia and Singapore. SD, Sutta Discovery. This is the series that we are studying here. Something I've been working on the last 20 years. This long history, and I started from Malacca around the 60s, and then in the year 2002, we started this, we updated it to Sutta Discovery. It's called SD for short. Sutta Discovery, Singapore Dhamma, Sekianyi Dhamma, up to you. You can have different meaning. SD. 55.3, that means volume 55, Sutta 3. So we have computed 55 volumes. Actually, it's more than 55 because some volumes are double, triple, quadruple, pentuple, the set of 5 even I checked. But usually, each year there are like 4 volumes. Every 3 months, 1 volume. So 0.3 is Sutta 3, all right? And then in case someone asks you, what's the sutta about? Then you look at the theme, quickly you look at the theme. Even the teacher respects the teaching, right? The Dharma, the teaching is above the teacher. All right, then there's a copyright there. Okay, so that's the introduction. Eh? Now the next thing is a bit at the top. If you look at right at the top, next page in your own, the same page, you can see a line there, S12.3, SD 12.3 on the top left-hand corner. That is the SD number of this particular translation. So for this one, you remember SD 12.3, volume 12, Sutta 3. And then on the right-hand side, you have all those ID numbers for the sutta. S6.2, that I've highlighted that, so that's all you need to remember. In case there are people, local people who know Pali, they want to check. So you look at the /1:1382140. The Pali version, original Pali, is in the PTS or Pali Text Society Volume 1, Sangyutta Volume 1, pages 138 to 140. Okay? And then you have the Pali name. Now suppose you are even more traditional. This is in the next page. I don't know whether you can see it or not. It's page 2. No? But it doesn't matter. You can look in your notes. Very good. There it is. Right. Top left corner, you can see S1.6.2. Now this number is quite difficult to remember. You don't have to remember this. I put it here so that you don't have to remember it. When you want to check, you see, we don't only have the one in London, Pali Text Society, we also have ancient texts in Sri Lanka. In one country, there are 4 or 5 sets of Tripitaka, different versions. In Myanmar, so you have different sets. But the good thing about in Myanmar, they have unified everything, and you got one. It's called the Chatta Sanghiti, Chatta Sanghayana, 6th Council Tripitaka. Very beautifully done. Right? And then in Thailand also they have their own, again, 4 or 5 versions. The university I went to, the Hmong University, they also have their own Tripitaka. In Thai, by the way, so in Thailand it's Thai characters, in Myanmar it is Myanmar character, in Sri Lanka it is in Sinhala character. The good thing now is all these countries, they have Romanized versions. Romanized means like the English you're looking at now, so it's easier for us to read. So here on this top page you can see S1.6.1.2 is the Burmese edition. So you can check with you can see the official version of the Pali if you like. What does S1.6.1.2 mean? You can see on the right hand side, okay? Right hand side. S means Sangyutta Nikaya, and then 1 is volume 1. Sagata Wagga, this is the Wagga means chapter, Sagata means there are verses, okay? Section 6, which is called Brahma Sangyutta. Okay, Sangyutta are connected teachings. Connected teachings about Brahma, okay? Chapter 1 or section 1. And then the next one is called Patama Wagga, so they divide again. Patama Wagga, first chapter, Sutta 2. It's a little complicated, right? But that's the way this was done before the British came to Asia and then discovered Buddhism, and then they also did their own. What they did was they collected all these ancient leaves, the palm leaves. Sometimes we don't even know how valuable these are. So the good thing about these Western scholars is they know, they have this nose for something precious. They like old things. So they preserve all these scriptures for us, and we're able to have different versions and check which is the best version we can use. Right? So that's a bit of historical background. We're going to do more of this kind of detective work in a separate group, which Brother Baba Chan will announce later on. Okay. All right, now let us go into the sutta itself. Okay, now you can turn to your sutta on page 46, Gārava Sutta, the Discourse on Respect, as 6.2. If you don't have any text, you just listen, I will read and explain. Now I have given subheadings for each section, so it's easy for us as we read it. The Buddha's reflection. Thus have I heard. Okay, you can see number 1 there. Okay, this number 1, 2, and so on, these are numbers found in the Pali text. But sometimes the numbers are very big, so I have added in more smaller numbers so that when the teacher teaches, it's very easy to refer to the paragraph in question. For example, I can say, look at paragraph 1, paragraph 2, like that. So paragraph 1 begins, thus have I heard, the famous sentence spoken by Ananda during the first council. And he remembers all these teachings the Buddha has given, and here's one of them. So this comes from him. Okay. At one time, the Blessed One was staying at the foot of the goatherd banyan tree on the bank of the Niranjara river at Uruvelā, just after the full awakening. Okay, that's a typo here. Not awaken, it should be awakening. That's why I've been saying I need proofreaders. So these are little things we need to correct. Okay, so after the Buddha became Buddha, he was sitting down meditating. Probably this could be within the first 49 days, sitting down under this huge banyan tree, very shady. We do have quite a lot of banyan trees in Singapore, but I don't know. I'm sure in Malaysia there are banyan trees too. And this is called a goatherd banyan tree. Now, you notice in my Pali translation, I don't use capital letters. I just say goatherd banyan tree, because I don't think the ancient Indians actually gave them proper names like the way we do here, and then they put a signboard there. I don't think they did that in the Buddha's time. Anyway, they call this goatherd banyan tree because the goatherd like the jaga kambing, we say. The goat keeper would stay under the shade of the banyan tree when it is hot. So they name it goatherd banyan tree. And this is near this beautiful river Niranjara. This is near where the Buddha sat down and became awakened. The Bodhi tree is elsewhere. Okay, so he's sitting there and he's reflecting. Section 2. Then when the Blessed One was alone in retreat, okay, here means the Buddha sitting by himself. Usually when there is many monks, by the time when there are already lots of monks, the Buddha would spend at least twice a day in retreat, at dawn and at dusk. At dawn, that means just before the sun is rising, it's going to rise, he goes into meditation. So as he meditates, the sun rises. All right, just like his awakening morning, Vesak morning. Now you see the Buddha sits facing the east, and the sun rises, and this bright sun shining on his face, very beautiful. And then in the evening, as the sun setting, the Buddha will go into retreat again, meditate again. So this is, we're not told exactly whether it's morning or dusk. So he was alone in retreat. This reflection arose in his mind. So he was reflecting. One dwells in suffering if one dwells without respect, without deference. Now, what recluse or Brahmin may I, honoring, respecting, dwell dependent on? Okay, there's a lot of what's called Pali idiom, sutta language here. Okay, the basic idea is very clear. The Buddha is saying one dwells in suffering if one dwells without respect, without deference. Now here you see what is called a trace of the oral tradition, repetition of words. Without respect, without deference, they mean the same thing. In this case, okay? Here is repeated for emphasis. This is the key word the Buddha, the sutta compiler wants us to remember. So the message starts, the Buddha says, it is not, you won't be happy if you live without respecting someone. So the Buddha is saying, whom shall we respect? This is the next question. Which teacher shall I respect and dwell dependent on? Okay, this last phrase, dependent on, okay? Dependent as a teacher. You go to the teacher, you learn, you show respect. Now imagine this is the Buddha, he's awakened, and he's saying, whom shall I respect? And we all know he's awakener. There's no one more awakened than him. Okay, so he surveys the world now. This is the next section, right? The 5 Dharma aggregates. Section 3. Then it occurred to the Blessed One, for the fulfillment of any unfulfilled aggregate of moral virtue of mine, may I, honoring, respecting, dwell dependent on another recluse or Brahmin. However, in this world, with its gods, with its Maras and its Brahmas, is this generation with its recluses and Brahmins, its rulers and people, I do not see any ascetic or Brahmin more accomplished in moral virtue than myself, whom I might, honoring, respecting, dwell dependent on. So the Buddha says, okay, let me look around it with my mind, because he is already enlightened, awakened, so he's able to like survey the world, see who is there someone who has this moral virtue just like him, who is able to keep the precepts, who body and speech are well disciplined. Is there someone better than him that he should bow to? He couldn't find anyone like that. Okay? Now there are 4 more passages which are identical. Here again we see what's called the oral tradition. They repeat themselves. You will see in section 4 there are italicized words. The words which are crooked, italicized, that means those are repetition. They are repeated from the first paragraph. So I don't have to repeat this because we are following what's called the scribal tradition, the written tradition. We can read this text. So I will summarize for you. So this is where the 5 Dharma aggregates come in. The first is aggregate of moral virtue. Okay, so what is the Buddha talking about here? What aggregate? Think of 3 aggregates first, okay? The Buddha is talking about the 3 trainings, sikha, 3 trainings. First training, moral virtue. Then if you look at, you can see a round bracket 2. You look at number 4, after that there's a round bracket 2, okay? So all these numbers are to help us remember teaching sets, okay? Number 2. What is the highlight there? What is the bold words there? Aggregate of concentration, samadhi. Okay? So here the Buddha repeats his search. He said, okay, let me see. Is there someone who has the second training, meditation, samadhi? He's very good, better than me. Then I will show my respect to him. Again, there is no such person better than the Buddha in meditation. Alright? Okay, the Buddha said, all right, let me now look for the 3rd kind of person. That is section 5. You see brackets 3. For the fulfillment of any unfulfilled aggregate of wisdom. Okay, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Now, if you are from Sekyan, you know this very familiar. This is the logo, the motto of your lotus logo. Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Moral virtue, concentration, wisdom. Panya is wisdom. So the Buddha said, okay, let me see, is there anyone in this world who has wisdom greater than mine, and I can show respect to this person? Again, no such person. All right. Then we come to the next section, next page, all right? Section 6. Now you have something new. So you have the 3 trainings. What do the 3 trainings represent? The Eightfold Path. Okay, here let me just quickly summarize first, then I show you another diagram. I think I should, let's see the diagram first. The Eightfold Path diagram, Brother Chan. Eightfold Path diagram, yeah. So when we talk about the 3 trainings, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, we're talking about the Eightfold Path. Okay? So we just wait a while, diagram will come up, the table will come up. All right, here, there you are. So you can see, right, see Brother Chan has done this very beautiful diagram. So you see under the 5 Dhamma aggregates. They're called aggregates because they come in sets. When you talk about moral virtue, there are 5 precepts, for example. And moral virtue deals with speech and action, right? Then number 2 aggregate of concentration is called aggregate because concentration, meditation also, we have sets of practices to do and so on. And then number 3, aggregate of wisdom, all right? Okay, so if you look at this 1, 2, 3, when you expand 1 to 3, you get the Eightfold Path further down. Can you see that there are 1 to 8, the Eightfold Path expanded into the 10 rightness. Actually, it should be rightnesses. No? Anyways, okay. So 1 to 8 are Eightfold Path. So aggregate of moral virtue will be number 3, 4, 5. Okay? Right speech, right action, right livelihood. The aggregate of concentration would be the last, the 7 and 8, right? Mindfulness, right concentration. And then aggregate of wisdom will be 1 and 2. Okay? Don't worry, you can't remember all this. You can always watch the video again. So aggregate 1, 2, 3 refers to the Eightfold Path. Okay? So when you summarize the Eightfold Path, you get the 3 trainings. So what happens when you have completed the training, right? You get freedom. That's number 4, aggregate of freedom, enlightenment, if you like, awakening. So now we don't need to go back to the sutta, I'll just tell you. So the next section 6, the Buddha asks, okay, let me examine, let me search now. Is there anyone who has attained this freedom, this awakening, like me? Again, no one. Now this is very important. See, there's no one else awakened like the Buddha. He's the only one. Then number 5, aggregate of knowledge and vision of freedom. Now this one is interesting. Okay, technically this is called review knowledge. Because the 5 refers to awakening, 6 is the Buddha looks back and says, oh, okay, I've attained this state. Now this is what happens because it's just like you go for an exam. The moment you pass your exam, you do not really know it. You only know it when you go to the notice board, your name is pasted there, and then you say, oh, I've passed. You know, from the time you notice the name only, you know you have passed. So that moment you notice and then you know, that's called knowledge and vision. Or Pali is a way of putting the last action first, knowledge and vision. Normally you see first, you see the result, and then you say, oh, okay, now I know I passed. Knowledge and vision of freedom. Okay, so that's number 5, aggregate of knowledge and vision. So again, is there anyone with this kind of knowledge? Again, at that time, the Buddha could not find anyone like that. All right. Now, what's interesting is this 4 and 5 and 9 and 10 are slightly different. They appear to be different when it comes to the 10 rightness. You look at 9 and 10, you have right knowledge, right freedom. But then again, you see they're talking about the same thing. However, it seems as if the set has been twisted around, right? Freedom put last and knowledge put first. So this is what makes scholars scratch their head, because some scholars, they expect everything in the Buddhist text to be very neat and tidy, exact. You don't get that sort of thing in an oral tradition. But when it comes to meaning, you know they're talking about the same thing. In the 10 rightness, they talk about the Eightfold Path. You complete the Eightfold Path, and then right knowledge arises. All the wrong views goes away, and then you are totally free. That is the way the set is used. So it's not that there are different teachings. It's the same teaching, but the teaching method, the purpose is different. So whenever you see different sets, there are different purposes for it. So don't worry, say, oh, how come there are 2 different sets of teachings? They're not. It's a different purpose. You see the same situation with the 4 Noble Truths. We are so used to Four Noble Truths arranged 1, 2, 3, 4, right? The truth that is suffering, the truth that is the arising of suffering, the truth that is the ending of suffering, and then the path. We see suffering, we examine what brought it about, and then we also examine the ending of it. Then we say, oh good, now I want to follow the path. Okay? But do you know that there is an older version of the Four Noble Truths? Not many people know this. It's found only, I think, 1 or 2 suttas. One of the Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta, for example, where the arrangement is 1, 2, 4, 3. Why 1, 2, 4, 3? First, the noble truth that is suffering. 2, the arising of suffering. And then there is the path. The last one is ending of suffering, which is nirvana. Now that makes good sense, doesn't it? You see suffering, and then you notice suffering can be ended, and then you go for the path to practice ending of suffering, and then you attain nirvana, you see. So this is the practice series, okay? But then apparently later on the Buddha and the monks, they found that when you teach, it is easier if you teach with the current version 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 2 versions there for different purposes. You have the practice series 1, 2, 4, 3, and you have the teaching series 1, 2, 3, 4, the one we are familiar with. So you must be prepared for all this when you study the suttas. Don't be dogmatic, don't argue and quarrel, say, oh no, this is the right one, the others are the wrong one, oh this is late, you don't read this. They all have their purposes. When you study closely, you notice everything makes sense. Right? This is what I find studying suttas so exciting. All right, so that's the first part. We have done with it. So after this, we come to section 9 in the sutta. All right, something new happens. Back to the suttas, section 9. Brahma Sahampati appears. Okay, I will read to you. Section 9. Then Brahma Sahampati, having known with his own mind the reflection in the Blessed One's mind, just as a strong man might stretch his arm out or bend it back, Brahma Sahampati disappeared from the Brahma world and reappeared before the Blessed One. Then Brahma Sahampati, having arranged his upper robe on one shoulder, knelt down on his... Okay, this part, knelt down on his right knee on the ground, is not actually found here. That's why it's in square brackets. This is found in the Uruvelā Sutta. Okay? Raised his palms lotus-wise to the Blessed One and said this to him. So it is, Blessed One. So it is, Blessed One. So it is, Sugata. Okay, so he addresses the Buddha as Blessed One, Sugata, out of deep respect. So here you have Brahma appearing and like endorsing the Buddha. So yes, you are right. All right. So you see this. You remember the first time Brahma came to see the Buddha was at the end of the teaching of the first discourse. Why does Brahma appear? He is the highest god of the Brahmins in the Buddha's time. So for Brahma to come down and bow before the Buddha, wow, it is the great God himself, the great God of the Brahmin, the highest God, the creator God, and so on. You know, he comes down to pay respect to the Buddha, invites the Buddha to teach. And then here he comes again, he tells the Buddha, yes, you're right. What gives Brahma the authority, you might say? We don't have to talk about him as a god. He has a very long life. Okay, he is Brahma. Okay, you have Devas and you have Brahma. Usually, technically speaking, Devas are those who are in the sense world. Okay, like Sakra and so on. Now, those who are Devas in the form world, in other words, they go into deep jhana, they're able to meditate very deeply, and they don't have physical body like ours. They're pure light, very bright and beautiful. They are called Brahmas. Okay, Brahma means perfect, holy. Deva has 2 meanings. One meaning is bright. Okay, the other meaning is playful. Okay, So those are the lower world devas. Whereas the form world and the formless world, formless world devas or formless world Brahmas are even more special. You can't see them. They're invisible. In fact, they're pure energy, if you like, to put in a modern sense. So the devas of the form world, formless world, technically we call them Brahmas. So this Brahma Sampati is one of them. Now Brahma Sampati was a very old friend of the Buddha. There's one sutta, which is very, very moving sutta, where Brahma comes along and asks the Buddha, "Do you remember me? I was your old friend. In the last life, you were so and so, and I was your friend." In fact, there are a couple of suttas about this. The main sutta, this is where we can go to the Brahma diagram, the Brahma table. It's called the Gārava Sutta. Let's just wait a moment. Now, further down, next one. Yes, okay, very good. Okay, you can see Brahma Sampati, this is his name. Brahma is a deva of the form world, above the sense world. He's a Maha Brahma, in other words, he's one of the top gods in the first dhyana, and he's a non-returner. Okay, so his story goes back to the Gārava Sutta. You see the last line, the Gārava Sutta, M81. It has been translated in SD 49.3. It is a very beautiful story. Gārava Sutta is where Brahma was still a layman. He was a potter, and he practiced very well to the extent that he became a non-returner. And even as a non-returner, he takes care of his two blind parents. Now, because of his two blind parents, he could not renounce the world. He could not become a monk. This was during the time of Kassapa Buddha. Now, the story goes that at that time, this Gatikara, he has a close friend, a young Brahmin student, Brahmin boy, if you like, called Jyotipala. Now, he knows that Jyotipala is very special, so he was trying very hard to get Jyotipala to see the Buddha. But the Jyotipala just refused to see the Buddha. He said, "No, I want to see this bald-headed teacher. What's so big deal about this?" and so on. So he's really antagonistic, doesn't want to go. So in the end, to cut a long story short, this Gatikara, being such a good friend, they're very close. This normally won't happen in other situations. In this case, they're very close. Gatikara caught hold of Jyotipala by his top knot. You know, these Brahmin boys, they got long hair, and pulled him along so he cannot fight back, you see, and took him to see the Buddha. All right. There are other details you can read in the sutta. So he went to see the Buddha, and of course Gatikara bows to the Buddha, and of course Jyotipala will have nothing to do with the Buddha, Buddha Kassapa. Then the Buddha started teaching Dhamma. Okay, that's when something happened to Jyotipala. The moment he hears the Dhamma, something clicked in him. He realized that, wow, I want to be a monk. He decided to be a monk. And this Jyotipala is none other than our own Buddha in the past life. That is his last life before being reborn in the Tusita heaven. So they were good friends even at that time, Jyotipala and Gatikara. Okay. So here Brahma comes along again, invites, tells the Buddha, yes, you have done the right thing. Okay. So he says, even in the past also, this is the situation. When the Buddhas arise, there'll be no one better than the Buddha in sila, samadhi, panya, in moral virtue, concentration of wisdom, in the freedom, and in the knowledge and vision of freedom. And in the present too, you are the only one. And in the future too, there'll be only Buddha. There'll be no, at that time when the Buddha arises in the world, in fact, no one will be more awakened than the Buddha, so to speak. All right. So this is a kind of endorsement of the truth. So imagine this Brahma speaking in this way, and he always appears in some very important event in the Buddha's life. You can say he's already, being a non-returner, is already a Buddhist. He was such a Buddhist, even in those early years, the Brahmins were not happy at all. So the Brahmins stopped worshipping him. So even today, you go to India, you know, India is a country of temples. You find thousands and thousands of temples to Shiva and Vishnu and other minor gods, you know. But there are hardly a dozen temples dedicated to Brahma. Because the Brahmins don't like Brahma. They say he's not a Hindu, he's a Buddhist. So, well, that's true, is it? He is very respectful of the Buddha. All right? So this is a very special situation of Brahma. Okay? Right, then the sutta closes with Brahma reciting the verse. Okay? This is the section 12 onwards, the closing of the sutta. This is what Brahma Sahampati said. Having said that, he added, the self-awakened ones of the past, the Buddhas of the future, the self-awakened one now, who removes the sorrow of many, with respect for true Dhamma, they dwell, and they now dwell, and they will dwell too. This is the nature of the Buddhas. All right? Notice there are three tenses here. Past tense, present tense, future tense. It's very good to learn Pali, you learn all the three tenses here. Therefore, one desiring the good, yearning for greatness, should revere the true Dhamma, recollecting the Buddha's teaching. So here, notice the Brahma doesn't say we should worship the Buddha. The second last line says, should revere the true Dhamma, recollecting the Buddha's teaching. So this sutta places the Dhamma first. This is not the only sutta that does this. Even when the Buddha was passing away, he tells us in his last messages, he says, take the Dhamma as refuge. Take the Dhamma as your island. Take no other refuge. Right? So he places the Dhamma above himself. So this sutta is very important. It shows that even though we go for refuge to the three jewels, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, the reality is there's only one real refuge, that's the Dhamma. Okay? But we speak of three because the Buddha is the teacher, he's the one who awakened to the truth, and then there is the teaching, he gave it to us. The teaching also is the method, the path, and then there are the arahats and the saints, the noble Sangha. So these three are, the 1 and 3 are aspects of the Dhamma. Now this teaching is important because it reminds us there's only one Buddha. Okay? So this is where we come to another diagram about the one Buddha. We respect only one Buddha. Okay? However, you notice even in Theravada Buddhism, some temples you say, well, Yecha Buddha Atitacha, Yecha Buddha Anagata, Pachuppanacha, Ye Buddha Ahang Wanda Misabada, right? The Buddhas of the past, Buddhas of the future, Buddhas of the present, I respect, right? This is a later prayer. It's a Sinhala invention. No one in the Buddha's time will ever recite such thing. They'll say, oh no, you can't recite this, you know. You have this Buddha. There's only one Buddha. There's only one Buddha, and you respect him. That's all, you know. You don't need other Buddhas. It's just like one captain of the ship, all right? So, anyway, after the Buddha passed away, the arahats, of course, have no problem. They say, well, it's the nature of the Buddha to pass away. His body is such, you know. But he's already awakened. So there's nothing to worry about. The fact that the Buddha passed away is the final endorsement of the truth. The Buddha passed away to prove that his teaching is true. Impermanence. Even the Buddha has to pass away. But then the new Buddha will come. So there's only one Buddha. We don't need many Buddhas. Okay? Then Buddha passes away. Arahats say, okay, it's impermanent. Those are not arahats. Even, stream winners can feel sad, Of course, stream winners have no more lust. The way that the worldling would have. But they still have desires of other kinds, but not breaking the precepts. They feel sad, okay? And imagine those who are not stream winners would be even people like us. We would even feel more sad when someone wonderful like the Buddha passes away. Despite the fact the Buddha gives so much advice to say, please don't worry too much about all these things. So what happened is, after the Buddha has passed away, people mourn, you see. Now, if you study psychology, you begin to understand that some people, they never stop mourning. They can't give up the idea of such a big, huge figure like the Buddha. So they just say, no, it's impossible. Such a great figure like the Buddha, he cannot die. So they refuse to believe that he has died. So they invented all kinds of stories to say, oh no, he didn't really die. Oh, he's still alive in Nirvana, and so on and so forth. Because they need him. They treat him like a god. They pray to him. They ask for things. So they didn't treat him like the way he taught us to practice. In the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the Buddha declared, the supreme worship, Parama Puja, the highest worship, is not worshipping him. It is to practice the Dhamma. When you sit down, calm, you close your eyes, you feel calm. That is your highest puja. You have practiced the Buddha's teaching. But many of these people, they're not awakened, so they feel sad. They say, no, there must be a Buddha somewhere. This Buddha didn't really die. So they start coming up with all kinds of stories. Now, something interesting which you've probably never heard other people saying, because this is a bit theoretical, the Mahayana, these ideas about the Buddha being treated like some kind of godlike figure who didn't die. This idea started with the Mahayana, right? And the Mahayana also arose around the same time as Christianity arose, the common century. And India and Middle East, Judea, they're connected by trade routes. This is just my theory, my suspicion. Surely there was exchanges of religion at that time. So they all heard all these ideas about God idea, the God who doesn't die, things like that. So I'll talk more about this in the next study, where I will tell you the problems that the Lotus Sutra, for example, is posing for us, and we should reject the Lotus Sutra. I'll talk about this in the next lesson. Anyway, so these people who cannot accept the Buddha's death, they invented all kinds of stories. Then they say, okay, there are other Buddhas. After all, there's so many universes. There must be other Buddhas too, in other universes. All right, so we can worship them. All right. The Theravada did not go so far. See, now we're going back a bit in time. Imagine you're now soon after the Buddha has passed away, and then 1 century, 2 centuries. Even in the suttas, you find the Buddha does mention that there was this past Buddha, Kassapa, right? And then you can see Gautama. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you start with Gautama. Now you go to number 3. The Buddha immediately before Gautama is Kassapa Buddha. This is not Kassapa the Arahat. This is a Buddha, different person. And then before him there is another Buddha called Konagamana. And then before him, one more, Kakusanda. Okay, this 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 4 Buddhas who have come into our world in this cycle, this present world cycle. Our present world cycle, our present world system is called the fortunate cycle because we have 5 Buddhas. 4 have come. All right. So to the extent the suttas mentioned, these are late suttas, the prophetic suttas. Then there is a coming Buddha, Metteyya. Metteyya comes from the word metta, loving kindness. Now he is not Buddha yet. So very important that we do not say Metteyya Buddha. He's not really a Buddha. He's Bodhisattva at best. Okay. I don't go into details because we might run out of time. He's not Buddha. That's good enough. All right. He's to come. All right. And in the course of this study, we will go on study suttas about him there's a long sutta called Cakkawatti Sihana, the sutta about Maitreya, which we'll probably do one day. The point here is there are 5 Buddhas in our world cycle, right? So 4 have passed. Now this is still what's called the dispensation of Gautama Buddha. Gautama Buddha is our teacher. Gautama Buddha came into this world. This is our only Buddha. This is the message of this lesson today. We only have one Buddha. We take refuge in only Sakyamuni Buddha, no other Buddhas. And this Sakyamuni Buddha respects the Dharma. All right? This very important idea which you must remember for today. Because other forms of Buddhism tell you, oh, there's so many Buddhas, all the 10 directions, there's Amitabha Buddha and so on. The Sakyamuni Buddha never mentioned Amitabha Buddha. Amitabha Buddha arose probably through influence of a Persian religion of light and dark. So the religion is very powerful. So the Buddhists are very good in countering this kind of influences. So they come up with new ideas. They say, oh, we also got the Buddha of light. It's called Amitabha and so on. So it went on like that. But they also created problems for us later on. So here, after 50 years of studying Buddhism, those days I tried to defend all kinds of Buddhism. It's very difficult. You can't, because they often contradict each other. So you end up telling lies. You end up contradicting yourself. So to myself, oh no, I'm getting old. I got to make up my mind what to follow. So I decided to go back to the early Buddhism, the very simple teachings of the historical Buddha, the early Buddhism of the historical Buddha. The idea here is very simple. Why do we honor only one Buddha? We only need one Buddha. It's just like we need one father, one mother, right? So it doesn't make sense to say, oh, don't worry, our father didn't really die, So there is another father we have somewhere who's not dead, whom we can respect as a father. It sounds rather odd, isn't it? And we can't say we have so many fathers, right? We just have one, that's good enough, right? So you don't need so many Buddhas. Just one Buddha is good enough. One mother is good enough, right? Because if you practice meditation, you're at peace with yourself, you keep the precepts, it doesn't matter. We are not Buddha, we are not yet awakened, but we are following his teaching. And to that extent, we are listening to him, and we are true disciples. Each become a stream winner at least. So the idea of one Buddha is to remind us you need only one person to discover the nature of suffering, how it arises, how it ends, and then the path. And once you have, it's just like this person who invents the wheel, who discovers fire, you just need one person. So we don't need so many Buddhas. And all these Buddhas don't exist, and it complicates things. Whereas if you follow the teaching of the historical Buddha, you learn to rely on yourself, you practice precepts, you train your mind, you cultivate wisdom, then you are free, and you know that you are free. This is the message of our sutta today, called the Gārava Sutta. So this sutta ends here. Okay?